Welcome back to Out of Possession, and today we're talking everything Champions League. We're reviewing the two semi-finals, the boring game, Arsenal versus Atletico, and also the exciting game, PSG versus Bayern Munich. Is this attacking, free-flowing football the future for every team? I'll tell you right now, it's not, but we go into more detail, and I'm joined by who better than Rupak to talk
Hello,
about this.
everybody.
And then we also previewed the final as well. And you guys might not like this because we both quite like Arsenal, but we talked about how PSG will set up against Arsenal, which I think, again, is really interesting, right? Because you have PSG as this free-flowing attacking team and Arsenal as this more defensive team. We talked about how they'll set up against each other. And I think it was quite an interesting conversation, so I hope you guys enjoy it. So we'll start by talking about Arsenal and Atletico. And I think this was certainly the more boring tie out of the two, but arguably more interesting from a tactical perspective as well, I think you could argue. And Arsenal won. And this could be a bit of an Arsenal glaze because we are two people who quite like Arsenal. But particularly in the first leg, I don't think Arsenal were great. And I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think they're great either. Atletico created a lot of chances. Like coming into this game, my main question for Atletico is, how are you going to create chance? Because if this isn't for like them playing on transition, or like Alvarez pulling off some crazy shot from outside the box, or just since he's a crazy shooter, he's the only one that I expect like to really provide that scoring threat. So coming into this game, I was like, yeah, I don't see this team really scoring. I don't see this team really generating a lot of chances. But I feel like they made it uncomfortable for Arsenal, like especially in the second half. They really pushed them, and I feel like this was their game to win. Anything but a win. I thought was pretty much like them being out because I didn't see them winning away at the Emirates. So yeah, I think they did it good for the quality that they have. And Arsenal, I feel like this was one of their down performances, especially defensively. How many chances they let in. So yeah.
I think the key was the build-up in this game, right? That was quite interesting. I know John McKenzie was talking about it on the TIFO podcast because the halves were quite contrasts from what I know. I haven't watched the game. I've only seen highlights and stuff, though this could be wrong. But I got the impression that in the first half, Arsenal are using Declan Rice between the centre-backs and Atletico were relatively passive. And I think that's the worst thing you can do against Arsenal is being passive because they do struggle sometimes in the build-up phase, I think, when teams can press them really aggressively and be a bit more imposing because they just don't have those elite ball progressive playing players like a Rodri or someone like that. Zubimendi just isn't at that level. And I think from what all accounts, we saw that in the second half, right? They got pressed up and then Atletico came into the game. They created some more chances. But like you were saying, you have to win at home in the Champions League. And there's so many people after this game that are saying that's a bad result for Arsenal, but I just don't think that's the case at all. Yeah. If we go back to Man City's treble winning run in the Champions League, we didn't win a single away game. Every single one was a draw. And that's okay, because if you're coming back to your own stadium, then you back yourself to win there. I think the away legs are very much must not lose in the Champions League. And that's what Arsenal have done here. And it was really effective because then I think they dominated the home leg, really.
Yeah. I mean, especially for a team like Atletico, you have to win at home because you have all the momentum there. You have less attacking quality, even compared to Arsenal, in my opinion. You go away where you know the other team's going to have a lot of momentum. You're going to be in the back foot most of the time. Yes, you could argue like there were some calls by the ref, blah, blah, blah. They should have scored here and there. But still, you got to win in the first leg. Second leg, I guess we can go on to it now. Because I feel like I thought the first leg didn't really have much to talk about, I'll be honest. Like, apart from it just being an even game. Second leg, I didn't get to see it. So I'll let you talk about it more. But yeah, I at least caught like the last 10, 15 minutes.
So like I said, we've covered all bases well here. I've seen the second leg, you've seen the first one. No, I thought Arsenal were really good in this game. I thought Atletico were really underwhelming for me, just especially in their substitutions. Like Simeone at 1-0 down took off basically all his attacking players at the 60th minute. And before that point, I think they did have a little bit of threat, at least on the counter-attack with those nice combinations with Griezmann, with Alvarez, with Lookman. And then he took off that threat. And when you put Soloff on, in a game state like that, he's never going to dominate because Arsenal have really great physical centre-backs, right? With Gabriel, with Saliba. The way you're going to score against them is never going to be by winning the physical battle. Unless you're someone like Erling Haaland, you're not going to win that one. So I didn't really understand that. And I thought it was a bit naive from Simeone. But apart from that, Arsenal dominated the game, really. They controlled territory really well. They created some good chances. I think they were unlucky only to score one goal, but that's all you need. And from that point, I think they controlled the game effectively, which people will call boring, but it's what Arsenal do really, really well.
Okay, in regards to Sorloth, I do want to add, like, whenever I've seen him play this season, I know he's like this, like, late sub, like, he wants to bring him on, hit teams on the counter after sitting deep, or, like, score a header. The guy is just, he's like a worse Gyökeres. Like, even if you can imagine that, for example, like, he tries to bully defenders, he really can't. He tries to run in behind. He looks quick, but he's not that rapid. He tries to win headers. He can't even do that. So yeah, that doesn't make sense to me when I saw that. Like after the game, I saw people saying, "Oh, why did he take?" I think Alvarez did pick up like a knock or something before the game, or even after the game, he probably wanted out. But Griezmann, I don't think did he go off Griezmann? Or
Maybe Griezmann didn't go off. I might have got that wrong. But he took off the majority of key attacking players that were causing threat there.
But yeah.
But yeah, I just think on Soloff as well, people are linking him with Manchester City as like a Haaland backup if Marmoush goes. And I just don't really understand it. I think he falls into this trend of people thinking that the Erling Haaland profile is why Erling Haaland's good, when that's not the case at all. Like, we've seen so many big strikers be bought in by big teams because they want their own Erling Haaland, and they fail because Haaland isn't good because of his profile. He's really good because he is so good at everything, if that makes sense. It's like the Gyökeres trend as well. I don't think Gyökeres has been particularly amazing for Arsenal, but the only reason they bought him is because they kind of want their own Erling Haaland, and that trend doesn't work. I think you just have to sign good players that work in your system, and Soloff is an example of a player that doesn't work because he isn't particularly good. And if he came to City, it wouldn't work. The system doesn't function the same with a worse version of Haaland or a worse profile than Haaland.
Yeah. Speaking of Gyökeres, I heard he had like a
good time. Yeah, Gyökeres was good. I was surprised by him. It's one of the few good performances I've seen. So I think his threat comes from that running in behind. And I think that's what Lewis Skelly gives you. And that's why he's really important in this game. Because especially in the bigger ties, I think there's lots of moments where if Arsenal have Havertz up front, you could slip that ball in behind. They want someone running into the channel, and Havertz just can't do that, whereas Gyökeres can, and they used it really well. For the goal, it was initially a pass into that channel, which Gyökeres chased well, and then he put it into the box. But I'm still skeptical on Gyökeres, because I think a lot of why he was so successful was more the Atletico players playing badly, rather than Gyökeres playing well.
And I'll say, I think the Atletico guys are better matchup for him physically compared to like the Premier League guys. Like someone like Lenormand or like Pubil, like these aren't guys I think of they're going to be like physically imposing to him. So you can just have their way with them. Where in the Premier League, they're just going to get close to you. They're not going to give you a lot of space to work with. Even on transition, like they're just going to be on you, man. Like so.
Yeah, it was exactly that. And Kish did a really good video talking about it. But they were really trying to engage that contact and engage in the physical battle with him. And that's exactly what Gyökeres wants, because he is quite a physical player. And when you engage that contact too early, he can spin in behind, which is what he was doing, running behind, and then he's a threat. Whereas what we see a lot in the Premier League is defenders will just step off him. They'll wait for the ball to come into him and then say, can you turn? And then he'll touch it down, and then they put the pressure on. And then he has no option but to pass it backwards, right? Because he hasn't got the ability to be able to spin like someone like a Doku could. Maybe that's kind of the way you marshal him. And I think Atletico got it wrong from that perspective, which is why he was so good in that game. But I don't think we're going down the path that a lot of people are suggesting if Gyökeres come in really good all of a sudden. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more of a good game due to poor defending rather than Gyökeres being excellent. But as well, like Lewis Skelly is a massive factor in that. And I think it's really interesting how different Arsenal are with Lewis Skelly rather than Zubimendi, because we were talking off camera before about how poor Zubimendi's actually been and how it surprised me more than you because you watch more La Liga. But I just think as a progressive passer, he's just not that guy. And he kind of looks okay sometimes because Declan Rice mitigates a lot of it. But really, he's quite poor. And when you put Lewis Skelly into that team and switch Rice into a deeper role, having someone who can really drive the ball through midfield, which Rice does anyway, but having someone who can do that, find those progressive passes, I think Arsenal look much better at the moment with Lewis Skelly than Rice.
Yeah. I've seen people say like Skelly's play style is risky here and there because like he has a chance to lose the ball. But like I've seen this guy last season against Atletico, against PSG last season, where he picks up the ball, he runs through an entire midfield, creates the best chance of the game in the first leg. I saw him against Atletico earlier on in the season, picks up the ball in the midfield, just runs through the entire team. I think he assists Martinelli. So that kind of quality, I feel like I would prefer in the Champions League over Zubimendi, who I think the whole team, just how good they are as a collective, I don't think the value of Zubimendi is that big in this Arsenal team in terms of how they pass, how they control games, how they pin teams back, etc., etc. I feel like for Rice, if he's gonna, because he's been playing more as like a third center back, like you mentioned earlier, like more helping in build up, in progression. So I feel like having a Skelly who can just take the ball from the middle up to the top and just really just break teams down when you really need him to. And you have runners too. Like Skelly works really well with runners, like Martinelli, Gyökeres. Like these guys run. Skelly picks up the ball, they go, he finds the pass, and they can make things happen. So I really like Skelly in these games. In regards to Rice, I heard he was probably the best player in this game. I saw he got the man of the match. Again, I didn't get to see the full 90, so I'll let you expand on that. But yeah.
I think when you say Lewis Skelly's risky, I think that's just anything good in football.
Yeah.
Every decision you make is a massive trade-off. And that's why, for example, as a centre-back, I think Mark Gahey is probably considered better on the ball than someone like a Ruben Diaz. It's because he takes more risks. But the nature of taking those risks means, yes, the positives when they come off, it's great, but they are risky. Like, he's more likely to lose the ball. It's the same thing we see with goalkeepers. Like, Neuer is much more likely to make a terrible mistake than Donnarumma is, because he's trying to take those risks. And I think to do good things, you have to take risks. That's the trade-off. And when you have good players, I think those risks are worth it. And that's the case with Lewis Skelly. But yeah, I thought Declan Rice again had a really good game. I think you'll agree with me on Rice, I reckon, but I don't understand the notion that he's not a world-class player. And I think it comes down to aesthetics bias again, because you look at someone like Coutinho, for example, and he's amazing at popping it about. He can find the progressive passes, break lines fantastically, like excellent player. But I think he's not the best player ever off the ball. And Rice is almost just exactly the opposite of that, where he's amazing off the ball, which is exactly what this Arsenal team need. They're built on being really strong defensively. Like, you don't want someone who's awesome on the ball and a liability off it when you're building your team around being really strong off the ball. He's perfect for them. But people will say, oh, you're not world class because you can't pass it. But you'll never see anyone look at Vitinha and go, he's not world class because he's maybe a slight liability off the ball. So I don't see why it makes sense the other way around. The only reason people think that is because they have a preference towards what happens on the ball rather than off it. And I don't think you can say what happens on the ball is more important than what a player does off it, especially in the big 26. Like, I'd say they're equally as important. But I just think Rice is superb. But especially in that second leg, Arsenal, just the control they have and how they can press so high up the pitch and maintain that control, it's down to Declan Rice. Like, anytime Atletico try and build through the center, he's there cutting it out. And that's an unbelievable trait to have.
I mean, I'm a big fan of him as well, like I mentioned. Like, on the ground, I feel his ground coverage is, I don't know if it's best in the world, but I'll definitely say it's up there. Like, when the team is in transition, you need someone to, like, just hawk him down. I remember a few seasons back, Bernardo had the ball. I don't know if you remember this moment, but against City, Bernardo gets the ball. He's running through on goal. Like, he's running on a counter. Like, is this a breakaway counter? Rice comes out of nowhere, just gets the ball off of him, starts his own counter, and then it leads to something for Arsenal. Like, that kind of ability to just transition from defense to attack and just bring your team forward. And he has the ball carrying as well. I think people say he's bad on the ball, but I don't really see it. Like, he's a big set piece threat. Yes, that's like not as reliable as open play stuff that the other players do, but I feel like he's one of the best set piece takers in the world from corners. I feel like he's one of the best ball carriers in the world through the center. Like, when he gets going, you really can't stop him. Like, I always use the chance he created versus PSG last season, where, again, just like Skelly, he picks up the ball. And in a game where nothing is happening for both teams, like, even if you look at the other side with Vitinha, Neves, they're not doing nothing. Rice picks up the ball in the midfield, goes past Vitinha, creates arguably the best chance of the game along with Lewis Skelly just by his ball carrying alone. On a passing level, I don't think he's bad either. Yes, you could, people say he's not as progressive, but I don't really think that's his job. Like, he's going to give you like a great, like, 8 out of 10 passing game regardless. So I don't think you should expect him to be this like crazy forward progressor, when that's just like judging a player for the wrong reasons, in my opinion.
Exactly. That's what I think. I don't think he is an 8 out of 10 passer. I think that's generous to him. I think a lot of the time he moves the ball a bit too slowly.
I feel like he doesn't do much wrong. Like,
no, but equally, is he doing anything that's that beneficial?
Yeah, I get that.
It's kind of like what we come back to with the risk taking. I think he knows what he's good at, which is a benefit. So he doesn't take those risks. And that doesn't mean what he's doing is necessarily bad, but equally, it's not great. It's just kind of okay. And that's why I'd have him as like a 6 out of 10 passer. Okay. So I do think as well, when you see him move the ball around the back and you compare it to someone like Rodri, he's not taking the moments to punch it through. But then even when he's passing sideways, it's maybe one touch too many. It's a slightly too slow to be at that elite level. But like you say, that's not his job. His job is to be that amazing ball carrier, is to be that off the ball presence that he is. And the way you mitigate the passing problems is by pairing him up with someone who is a really good passer, which is what they've tried to do with Zubimendi, and it hasn't really worked. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see Arsenal go back into the market to try and bring that player in. And maybe you look at someone like Adam Wharton, for example, who I'm not sure suits Arsenal, but that's how you get the best out of Declan Rice for me. And like you said as well, elite set piece threat. And you said set pieces aren't as consistent as open play. I disagree now. I think they're so consistent, especially for a team like Arsenal. And at the start of the season, maybe you could argue that, oh, this is bad because it's not consistent. But we're at a point now where they've consistently scored from set pieces and kind of leaned on that for a whole season, and no one's really been able to stop it. And I think because of that, you can now say this is a consistent way to score goals, and it's fine. And having a player like Declan Rice, who is an unbelievable delivery, is a massive part of that.
I think it's consistent for Arsenal, so I guess it is consistent for him. But I'm just talking like in terms of like general play, right?
Oh yeah.
He's not gonna be creating like chances out of nothing, like a Bruno, for example, or like even a player like less than Bruno for a little bit. I feel like if he had that, I don't think people will look past him. Like even the casuals, I don't think they'll look past him being the best in the world. I think he's really, And that's the only thing he's missing. Like in the final third, like if he was a little bit more, like as you said, more risky, more creative, I don't think there's a single weakness in this game.
We'll move on now to probably the more interesting game out of the two, I think it's safe to say, which was obviously PSG versus Bayern Munich. From aesthetics and a viewer's perspective, probably one of the best games I've ever watched. However, I don't want to talk about that because everyone has already said everything that's to be said there. I want to talk about the tactical perspective of it, because what we've seen here is two teams that are just playing this ridiculously attacking style of football. And I think when you think about football, it's always a trade-off between trying to stop the opposition scoring and trying to score yourself. And what we've seen here is two teams go absolutely to the max, especially in that first leg, on trying to score yourself. And there was a lot of talk after that tie that this is the future of football. No one's going to try and defend anymore. And I just think that that's rubbish, but I'd be interested to see what you'd think on that.
I think it was a really fun game. Like people have said, it's one of the best Champions League games I've ever seen. Like the pace of the game, I think Enrique and company both said it after the game. Is like Enrique said, it's nothing like he's ever seen, and that guy's managed some of the biggest games of the past like 10 years in football. So for him to say that, and we actually saw it, like every single action that the players did, it was like 100 miles per hour. Every attack, every defensive action, even the defenders, like yes, they were left on an island all the time, but like their actions as well, like Upamecano, Pacho, just 100 miles per hour intensity, pace. I feel like that side of it is like for top teams, like aspiring to be like these guys. I think that is kind of the future, but being that open, which is a good thing for the viewers, for people watching. I don't think you're gonna win consistently being that open, especially for Bayern Munich, who they're fantastic. Like when they press, they're fantastic when they attack. But I never got the sense or feeling, even when they played against Real Madrid, that these guys were like defensive juggernauts or could hold off like a proper attack defensively. I never got the feeling from them. That's why I thought PSG were going to give them belt to ass. And in the first leg, it was 5-2 at one point, and I was like, this is the expected result for me, because I don't think Bayern is that good defensively. PSG are, even though they give up space, they're a lot more pragmatic. Like they can be when they want to. They can be defensive when they want to, and even when they're defensive, they'll still be proactive in a way, which is weird, because like even when they sit off, they're still going to be running. They're still going to be trying to win the ball back in like favorable situations and break away. So yeah, it's a good game from that type of perspective. But I think Bayern are a little overrated in my eyes, because I don't think they can really balance the game out like a PSG can.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I just think Company as a coach is slightly naive, maybe. And that's the problem, because I think this style of football that we saw, it only works if you are the best team. Because you're just saying, we're going to go 1v1 across the pitch. We have better players than you, so we're going to win. And that only works if you have the best team. Therefore, this idea that football at the top level is just going to converge towards this, I don't think is true, because only one team can ever be the best.
Exactly.
And you win by trying to find a tactical edge. And the edge here is having the best players, which, like I say, only one team will have. Therefore, every single other team is going to try and do something different to find that edge. And I think this was slightly unique, because initially going into this game, I think both Enrique and Company thought, we have the best players here, we're going to play like this. But we quite quickly saw that one of them didn't have the best players. And I think PSG were up 5-2, right? Because they were so clinical in that game. But I thought Bayern were the better team. I thought Bayern had better chances.
Bayern are better collective.
The better opportunity.
But
exactly.
The way they play is like they played into PSG's hands. Even in the second leg, like their whole man-to-man, I don't think it works versus a PSG. It just doesn't work. Like Upamecano got pulled out on multiple times in that second leg. Like the first goal, for example, Kvara pulls him out. Kvara runs in behind. If you're doing a man-to-man like that, you're going to leave space. But you're leaving space against the most decisive attack in the world.
Exactly. This is my point, though, right? Unless you're definitively the best team, which neither of those teams are, definitely the best team, you're not finding an edge by playing this way, because you're leaving massive open spaces. Like there's always got to be an element of tactics to trying to stop the opposition rather than just maximizing yourself and trying to score yourself. And I just don't think Bayern Munich do that enough. I think they have the players to do it. They have great defenders. Like Upamecano for me is a top 2 centre back. Like he's unbelievable, but you're just platforming him so badly to the point where you're just open at the back. And like you say, that first goal not yesterday, we're recording this like miles after it's been played. But that first goal in the second leg, even, I don't even think that's Upamecano's fault. I think he does his job.
Yeah, he just has to do it, because like if he doesn't,
exactly, he has to do that because of the system. The problem is Lema doesn't then close down Fabian Ruiz anywhere near quick enough, so he has the space to find that pass. And in an ideal world, he does close that down quick enough, and then Bayern are great defensively. But the problem is, when you're playing at such a high intensity and taking such risks, there are always going to be moments where you get something wrong, and those moments leave such massive spaces in behind like that, where you're going to get punished. Whereas I think if you're in a bit more of a pragmatic system, yes, you might make that same mistake, but it's not going to be anywhere near as easy to punish that. And I think there's an element of pragmatism that maybe Company needs to learn before this Bayern team go to the absolute top level for me.
Fifth goal. It was PSG after their fifth goal. The game was 5-2. It was in a state where I thought they would go on to win like 6-3, like 7-7. That genuinely could have happened. This is another point that I want to make. People give a lot of shit to Arsenal for. That Upamecano set piece, if he doesn't score that set piece, the game is like completely gone from them. Like that set piece, I think Bayern relied on set pieces as well throughout this, even against us. They relied on set piece to bring them back into the game. Against PSG, they relied on that set piece to bring them back into the game. I thought it was less of PSG like losing the game or like being tired, and more of just Bayern finding like a new gear after that goal to like go on and get that fourth and then make it even relatively close. But even then, PSG still had enough chances. They still generated a lot of chances. So I just want to highlight that. I feel like set piece, like that's one of the biggest ways to like just swing the momentum in your favor in these games, which is very underrated.
I think momentum's the key word here. We talked ages back when we did our Champions League power rankings before the knockouts even started, and it was just all about momentum because that is the key in the Champions League. And I don't necessarily think before or after PSG went 5-2 up, Bayern's game changed that much. I think PSG went slightly more pragmatic. They just took their chances, and then they get that momentum. That's all that happened as well. When PSG went from 2-2 to 5-3, they just took their chances. They weren't necessarily generating more. If anything, they were generating less. And you could even argue, looking at the second leg, yes, PSG were pragmatic and it worked. So we're all going to sit here and go, oh, that was great from Enrique, which I think it was. I think it was the right thing to do in that situation. But with players of this quality, like Elise could have easily have scored the chances he gets. Luis Diaz could have scored the chances he got. And then it's a different game. And we're talking very differently about the strategy and these players. But that's the thing at the top level. Like the margins are so fine. You're kind of playing with probability. And I think Enrique did the right thing across these two legs to maximize the probability of his team winning. Whereas I don't think Company did the same thing. I think he was a bit too homogenous in his approach to what we've seen previously. And I think you have to change your approach against these top teams, which I don't think he did.
In regards to Bayern and their attack specifically, I think we said prior that Bayern was the better team, like a better collective. I thought that over both legs. They were, I guess, not so much the second leg, like second half of it. I thought PSG were extremely good. But over 90, 100, 135 minutes, I thought they were the better like collective team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I felt like, and again, this is like, I've noticed this with them. I feel like when they get to the final third, they just don't have, they're broken the goal scoring record. I feel like with them, it's more about like quantity of chances they create instead of like the quality of the finishers they have. They have Harry Kane, and he scored a ridiculous goal in the second leg. He can score these ridiculous goals, but I feel like they wasted too many opportunities just by being sloppy. Like if you put PSG players in those situations, in like the last 20 minutes of the first leg, you put PSG players in that situation where Olise was at, where Diaz was at, even the situation, I don't want to say Kane because Kane didn't really make many sloppy decisions in the first leg. But I think if you switch those players, I feel like, PSG are the team coming, not PSG, but like Bayern are the teams coming out of this, which is weird because again, this is a team that broke the scoring record. They're going to probably break the scoring record in top 5 league, like in the history of this league. I mean, history of the top 5 leagues. But I feel like they were sloppy. Like, I don't think they did enough. They were presented so many like easy like sequences and they just failed to execute. I don't know how you saw it, but that's another.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think just in the final actions, I don't think they were necessarily decisive. And I don't know if that's a reflection on the quality of players or just the moment going against them. But especially in that first leg, I think TBL did a really good video just talking about the box touches. And Bayern Munich had so many touches in the box. I think they had so many opportunities where if you make the right decision, you have a shot. And they just didn't. Or they get into a nice position to shoot and they do have a shot and the quality is just not there. Whereas with PSG, they are so decisive in the final third. Like if you give them an opportunity, they'll get a shot off and that shot will be of ridiculous quality. Like I did a video talking about Kvaratskhelia today and why I think he's slightly overrated because he's massively overperforming his XG in the Champions League this season. And I think in a couple, like next season, for example, that will come down. But every single PSG player like overperforms XG.
Yeah, this is not the quality.
They are ridiculously clinical.
Yeah, I feel like with them, like if one guy is not performing, all right, for example, Doué. I don't think Doué scored a goal. He didn't score a goal over these 2 legs. But you can see like when he picks up the ball and he like does his step overs or like he creates space for himself, every single shot was extremely good. Like the one that hit past, it was for Neves's goal in the first leg. He was the one that created it because he went past like a few bodies and just got the shot off because he had the space to do it. Another day, he's the one that's overperforming the XG, right? Dembele, for example, he has the quality. He's 2-footed. He can shoot from anywhere. Another day, he's the one overperforming the XG. In this run, it just so happens to be Kvara. I feel like they have three players. With Barcola, I think depending on the form he's on, he has the capability to do it. So like they have these players who can just, if one's not performing well, the other's gonna overperform what they're supposed to do, and vice versa. Which I think is a really good dynamic to have in these games, because you always don't want to rely on one guy to be overperforming your team's number of goals over and over and over, because it's just not reliable. But in a way, I do think it's reliable for PSG because they have multiple players who can do it in multiple situations. It's just not one guy like Cavara, for example. As a team, that's the team top for me. Like
100%. I mean, even if we rewind to like the game against Chelsea they had, for example,
Yeah.
they won that like 8-2 in the end. If you look at the XG, it's pretty even. They just have that decisive edge that other teams don't. I think they might have even lost on XG against Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot more to do with the game state though, because they did dominate the first leg. But still, like they just have that decisive edge that other teams don't. Against Bayern Munich, I'd say the chances were probably in Bayern's favour, but again, they have the decisive edge, and Bayern didn't. And that's why I'm worried for Arsenal in the final. I think if it was Bayern Munich, I'd have been pretty confident they'd have won that game. But PSG makes me nervous.
You should see me on Twitter. I was going after that ref on every single decision. I wanted Bayern in that final, bro, because based on what I saw earlier on in the season, and just based on the way that Bayern played, I think the favorite going into that game would have been Arsenal. But I feel like this PSG-Arsenal game is more of a 50-50, or like I'll say 55-45. I'll edge it to PSG just because I think they can play a style that is more pragmatic, like last season, where they'll just sit off and let Arsenal have the ball. But they also have the players, like you said, that can just create like a goal or two, like off a deflection or from outside the box, like a half chance. And then they'll just sit back and Arsenal have to chase the game for the rest of the game, which I think is tougher than playing a Bayern Munich. You know you're going to dominate them physically. You know you're going to run more than them. You know you're going to get them on set pieces. You know you're going to get them on long balls. You know they're going to give you space. Structure. Like, it's just, I think PSG just makes it so hard for them to like, not hard, but like harder than Bayern to do what they want.
Yeah, I agree. It's more just that attacking quality. Like, if PSG have a single moment, there is a good chance they're going to punish you. Whereas I just don't think that's the case with Bayern. And I think you can't switch off for a single moment against them. I'd edge the game to Arsenal.
You think? Okay.
I think they probably still win it. But you have this like wonderful juxtaposition almost in the styles, right? If PSG are going to be quite attacking, free flowing, you'd think, whereas Arsenal are defense. And it comes down to ultimately, do Arsenal win those individual matchups? And I think I'd say the answer is probably yes, whereas I assume you think it's more no.
I think they will, but what you said earlier, I think PSG get a goal. I think they have the quality to just sit back and just not do anything and just try to play on the counter. That's the thing I don't think Bayern have. I think if Bayern score a goal, they are not going to sit back. They're not going to want to like play more pragmatic and then let Arsenal come into them. They want to still keep on going. It's kind of like Barca in a way. Like I compare. I've said in the past, I think like Bayern is like just Barca with Upamecano at the back, which I don't know how you feel about, but yeah, I think the quality that PSG has to just sit back. And yes, you have to be lucky, right? When you sit back against a team of Arsenal's quality or like a team of higher quality, you have to be sort of lucky, so like you don't concede the chances you're giving the opposition. But I feel like PSG can like trade that risk if they get an early goal or like they go a goal up.
I agree with that. I think on the Barcelona thing, I kind of disagree, because I think if they have that centre back, they'd be at that level. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I always find Hansi Flick just completely naive, and I don't understand why he's trying to force this style of play when you don't have the players to do it. I think there has to be some adaptability there eventually, which is kind of my problem with Barcelona. But no, I completely agree. If they can get that big centre back, like maybe it's a Slotterbeck, for example, I think the level Barcelona go up,
it just goes up for them.
It's crazy.
Yep. Because like even with just like Rafinha and Yamal, I feel like that's too good. That's like a Diaz and Olise on crack. Like that's literally what it is.
Exactly. And it's just having that control. Because I think we saw against PSG, Bayern did have moments where they had attack, some control, because they have Upamecano to sweep up.
Mm-hmm.
And if Barcelona are in that situation, PSG will just hit a long ball, Dembele will do Kubarsi, and then he fouls someone, gets a red card, and then the game state completely changes. Where, like you say, if you have that big physical centre-back, that's not the case at all. But again, if you know you don't have that centre-back, why are you playing this way? It makes no sense. And that's why I think Company shouldn't really be playing this way either, because you know against PSG, they're going to have moments, which is why I think you need to be pragmatic. And that's the reason why I think PSG are probably better suited to this final than Bayern as well. Because like you were saying, if they score a goal, I think Enrique will have some pragmatism about him. And then you worry for Arsenal because they don't have that attacking quality to be able to break down the Bayern block. They just don't. Their only hope is really a set piece at that point. Whereas, like you say, I wouldn't see Bayern Munich doing that. I think Company's so tied to his principles. It would just be
Yeah.
attack, 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 even if it risks losing the game. And ultimately, the goal is to win the game, which is why I question that.
Yeah. I feel like in regards to this tie as well, especially the second, I feel like Company was really unlucky with the squad depth. Like coming off the Gnabry injury, I thought Gnabry would have been really big difference maker. Like, for example, we're talking about Barnes' attack being sloppy. I think if Gnabry was fit over these 2 legs, they probably bag like around 6 goals over 2 legs, which is, I think they had 5. No, did they have 5? It was 6-5, right? Like the first leg?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
the first leg was 5-4.
5-4, okay, yeah. So they probably bag around like 6 or 7 over 2 legs with Gnabry, just because Musiala, someone like Musiala just isn't decisive. I feel like he was really, his squad depth isn't really there. So the work he's done is great, but I feel like he just needs more pieces in the midfield. Like even Joshua Kimmich, for example, who I love a lot. I like him a lot. I don't think, like, in moments he just gets bypassed too easily. So like, you give him better profiles here and there, you give him more squad depth. I think I don't know if he'd be willing to change, but I feel like they will have more of an edge in these games, like against the PSG, for example.
This is kind of, it comes back to what we were saying about this style of play, though. Like, if you have the best team, optimally,
Yeah.
it is the best style of play because you have the best players. It is the best way to optimize
players are the
these guys
tactics at the end
if
of
you're
the day.
better.
Like, yeah.
But the problem is, in a realistic world, you don't have those
Yeah, you
players. And when
don't.
you're coming up against the best teams, I just don't think it's the best way to find your edge. I think you find your edge at the elite level in, yes, there's a balance to it, right? And the trade-off is never going to be all on attack. There's always going to be an element of trying to stop the opposition scoring. And I think that's why PSG won this game, because in the second leg, we saw Enrique introduce that element of, we're going to try and stop you scoring too. And I think that's why they won. If they went all out attack again, I'd have backed Bayern to go and win that leg.
I do want to ask you something about PSG. So I've said it in the past that this is I think I've talked about it here, maybe when we talked about them. I think this is the quickest team I've ever seen. In terms of, like, when I say quick, I don't mean like just like pace, like, but like the way this team attacks space, like if you give them space, the way they attack space, I think this is the best team I've ever seen do it. Because when, like, on the counter, they have the front three who are rapid, who are technical, who can take up any positions, and we can just play off of each other like fluidly. And you have those 2 fullbacks who can just bomb up and down, like do 1-2s with their winger, just bomb into that space and just keep on attacking. I think in terms of that, this might be the best counter-attacking team. I think if you put them in ideal conditions against any other team over the last 20 years, I would say this is the best counter-attacking team that I've seen play the game, in terms of how fast they break, in terms of the quality that they have, in terms of just how they interpret space. I think that's the most important thing. Like, the way they attack space is so fun to watch when they have it. So yeah, I don't know how you feel about that. I just want to ask.
I'd agree with that. I think counter-attacking kind of assumes you've got 1v1s, and in 1v1 scenarios, you've got 3 players who are unbelievable. And I think if you have someone like an Erling Haaland, it almost like takes away from that, right? Because I think PSG's biggest threat is the fact that every single one of those players can go 1v1, and therefore they have such a variety of different attacking routes they can take. They're so unpredictable. Whereas you compare that to someone like Arsenal, who just don't have the tools to play this way, despite people saying, you should play more exciting football. If they did that, they would lose. That's why they don't do it. But when you look at Arsenal's attack, they kind of have to go through Bukayo Saka. There's not really another choice there. And I just think PSG having that diversity across the front line is so massive for them. So yeah, I'd agree with you on that. With the fullbacks as well, they just have so many different tools in the toolkit they can use. And same thing with like Man City, right? We kind of have to go through Doku, like you know what we're going to do, and that takes away from your counter-attacking threat quite a lot, or just your attacking play in general. I think it takes away from it.
So I want to talk about Saka, because it's the same thing with Declan Rice and Arsenal. Like, the hate is just unnecessary. I don't understand it. Like, everyone says, oh, he's overrated. This guy's overrated. But like, he can't really be overrated if he's one of the most.
No one rates you.
No one rates him, and he's one of the most hated players in the world. Like, everything he does, people seem to like just take like just make fun of. For example, like, he does step overs, he takes on a man. Oh, this guy's stiff. Oh, this guy can't dribble past his man. The thing I've hated the most over these past few months is this guy's been going through like recurring injuries since last season, right? So you haven't seen him at 100%. He hasn't been 100% fit. He's coming back. He's playing 60 minutes here and there, and even when he plays, it's like he doesn't have the same like physical qualities of like a fully fit Saka from, like, say, the start of the 24-25 season, where I think that's the best football he was playing. And I don't get people judging him based on what they're seeing now, when you clearly have like a better sample size, or like a more sample size what he was doing around like 2023, 2024, around that time. I just don't understand it. Like, it's just
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's definitely lost that edge, if you like, since his injury. Like, he's lost that burst of pace to be able to get past a player 1v1. But I'd argue that he's still amazing, because he's great out of possession and he's great in build-up, and they're 2 very important things for a winger. They're not the exciting things, but they're still very important, which make him a very good player.
his back to goal play, like when he receives from as an outlet, I think he's still one of the best outlets in the world. Even though he has lost like that burst that he used to have, like when he's receiving back to goal, like his strength, I feel like so ridiculous. Like the way he receives, and then he has the decision making and the IQ to like make the right decision every time. I think that's always been Saka's best trait. I feel like when you compare him to other wingers around the world, like in Europe, I struggle to find one or two wingers that are smarter than him, like on the ball and the decisions that they make. So he still has that quality. I just want to see him get that burst back, man. I want to see him like be a little bit more dynamic because I think this is one of the 10 best players in Europe. Like when he's fully at it, I don't know how you feel, but yeah.
I think he's harmed by the system he plays in as well. Like I'm a big believer that the environment a player is in is far more important to how good they are than their ability. And we see that with PSG. Like Kvaratskhelia and these guys are always going to look way better than the Premier League wingers because they're in an environment that is completely fixated towards platforming them perfectly.
Yes.
So naturally they're going to look great because they're always 1v1, for example. And we saw this in the Bayern PSG game. Like if you look at the first leg where PSG were going for it, like Elise and Diaz looked great because they're in perfect conditions for them. And then in the second leg, when PSG drop off, they don't look as good because the spaces aren't there anymore. And that sounds really obvious, but I think it's so true. And so often people look at Saka, he's not really platformed that well in the Arsenal team because it's platformed to be defensive. That's where Arteta kind of sits on this trade-off, right? Yeah. So of course he's not going to look as good as someone like a Doué who is platformed perfectly. And it's the same thing with someone like Doku. He's constantly playing against the blocks. The way Manchester City play, we're not 100% in the direction of attack. Like if you put Doku in PSG's team, I think he does exactly what Kvaratskhelia does. He does exactly the same thing to a really high level. So I don't really think the problem here is ability with Saka. Yeah, it's more he's lost that edge, yes, but I'd argue the system and the environment he's in maybe isn't the most beneficial to him looking good as an individual.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like when people judge players, they're only taking into account like the context or the environment they're in. Like for example, PSG literally play to open up space for their attackers, like on the counter. Like even against smaller teams, these guys literally bait teams to just open up that space in behind so they can hit them on the counter and attack those spaces, which is a lot easier if you're an attacker with those qualities, with being like that to like play better in those situations. Even Luis Diaz, Olise, like that first leg, it was just a product of them having so much space and them just being some of the best players in the world. Saka doesn't really get that often because everything goes through him. It's very predictable, like their style of play. Most of the times, teams like sit really deep against Arsenal and they put like a few bodies on Saka. So he doesn't really have that creative freedom to just express himself like other players do in space when you don't really have to worry about like the team conditions. Because like if you have the ball in space, for example, you're just gonna do what you think is the best decision. Like you're not gonna really thinking about like how do I break this block down or what do I do here? Like what's the perfect move here? Or like I lose the ball and my team gets this on the counter, blah blah. Like I just think Saka's been really unfortunate. I would love to see him in a more free type of setup. When he did get to play in that type, I mean his production was insane. Like back in like 2023, 2024, like when he was playing in a more I would say fluid type of team, like the back end of that 23-24 season when Arsenal were just winning games over and over. They were scoring a lot of goals. He looked great. Like the team was fluid. Like he looked great. Like they're creating a lot as a team as well. So yeah. I just want to see him in that environment, and I just want to see him get like a little bit more dynamism back. I think he's one of the best in Europe.